The history of Egypt. The history of Egypt is a long and complex one, stretching back thousands of years. From the ancient civilizations that built the pyramids to the modern era, Egypt has played a crucial role in shaping world history. This article will explore the rich and varied history of Egypt, from its earliest beginnings to the present day. Prehistory. The earliest evidence of human habitation in Egypt dates back to the Paleolithic era, around 30,000 BC. These early humans were hunter-gatherers who lived in small groups and relied on the abundant wildlife and plants of the region for their survival. Around 10,000 BC, the climate of the region began to change, becoming drier and more arid. This led to the development of agriculture, as people began to cultivate crops and raise animals in order to survive. The fertile Nile Valley was particularly well suited to agriculture, and the first settlements and towns began to appear along the river. The early dynastic period. The early dynastic period, which began around 3100 BC, marks the beginning of the recorded history of Egypt. During this time, the country was divided into two kingdoms, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, which were eventually united under the rule of the pharaoh Nama. The early dynastic period was a time of great change and innovation in Egypt. The first pyramids were built during this time, and writing and art began to flourish. The Egyptians also developed a complex religious and social system, with the pharaohs serving as both political and religious leaders. The Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, which lasted from around 2686 to 2181 BC, was a time of great stability and prosperity in Egypt. During this time, the pharaohs commissioned the construction of massive pyramids and other monumental structures, which served as their tombs. The Old Kingdom also saw the development of a complex bureaucracy, with officials and priests serving as advisors to the pharaoh. The Egyptians also developed a system of writing, known as hieroglyphics, which was used for official documents and religious texts. The Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom, which lasted from around 2055 to 1650 BC, was a time of political and social upheaval in Egypt. The country was invaded by the Hyksos, a group of foreigners who ruled Egypt for several centuries. Despite this period of foreign rule, the Middle Kingdom was a time of great cultural and artistic achievement in Egypt. The Egyptians developed new forms of art, such as realistic portraiture and narrative scenes, and new religious ideas, such as the worship of the god Osiris. The New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, which lasted from around 1550 to 1070 BC, was a time of great power and prosperity for Egypt. The pharaohs of this era, such as Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramesses II, expanded Egypt's borders and built some of the most impressive monuments in the world, including the temples of Karnak and Luxor. The New Kingdom was also a time of religious and cultural innovation in Egypt. The worship of the god Ammon became increasingly important, and the Egyptians developed new religious texts, such as the Book of the Dead, which provided instructions for the afterlife. Decline and fall. Despite its many achievements, Egypt began to decline in power and influence during the late period, which lasted from around 664 to 332 BC. The country was invaded and conquered by a series of foreign powers, including the Persians, Greeks, and Romans. Despite these setbacks, Egypt continued to be an important cultural and religious center, and the worship of the ancient gods and goddesses continued long after the country had been conquered by foreign powers. Subscribe.